We'll do that. Let's start this hour with breaking news. Moments ago, Russia is saying Syria has accepted a deal to turn over its stockpile of chemical weapons and place it under international control. This comes just as President Obama is preparing to address the American people tonight about his plan for a military strike against Syria, a potential diplomatic breakthrough that could change the entire situation. This, as a new CNN ORC poll shows, Americans have some serious reservations about President Obama's leadership on Syria. Less than 1 in 5 say they completely understand the president's policy, and almost 80% say the U.S. should not act as, quote, world policemen. We're going to be covering this story like no other network can. We'll start with Brianna Keeler live at the White House this morning. Good morning, Brianna.
Good morning to you, Kate. I think we should caution as we hear this report that Syria's foreign minister is saying that they are on board with this proposal to give up their chemical weapons to international control, that when you talk to Syria observers, they will tell you that that man, Walid Muallim, the foreign minister, isn't necessarily the core of the Assad regime. And so you can't really take it to the bank as Bashar al-Assad himself accepting this deal. There's a lot of skepticism that he would turn over his chemical weapons. And this proposal, as of now, that Russia is trying to broker, there are no specifics. There is no time frame, but even so, I think the White House is welcoming this sort of slowdown to the process as a, if you will, diplomatic off-ramp.
In a 6-network media blitz, President Obama spoke about his latest plans for dealing with Syria, telling Wolf Blitzer,
if we can accomplish this limited goal without taking military action, that would be my preference.
Earlier in the week, it seemed a military strike was the only option on the table for the U.S. until this. Secretary of State John Kerry making a seemingly off-script comment that turned into a possible option, providing Syrian President Bashar al-Assad a way out of a military strike.
He could turn over every single bit of his chemical weapons to the international community in the next week. Turn it over, all of it, without delay, and allow a full and total accounting for that. But he isn't about to do it, and it can't be done, obviously.
A U.S. official quickly chalked up Kerry's statement to, quote, a rhetorical argument. But Russia saw a real game plan in what some considered a gaffe, encouraging Syria to take action, saying, we're calling on the Syrian authorities to not only agree on putting chemical weapons storage under international control, but also for its further destruction. Syria responded just an hour later, their foreign minister saying, I declare that the Syrian Arab Republic welcomes Russia's initiative.
It is a potentially positive development. I have to say that it's unlikely that we would have arrived at that point where there were even public statements like that without a credible military threat to deal with the chemical weapons use inside of Syria.
But even as support seemed to grow, some question if this is the answer.
If the regime immediately surrendered its stockpiles to international control, that would be an important step. But this cannot be another excuse for delay or obstruction.
A sentiment shared by the president.
We don't want just a stalling or delaying tactic to put off the pressure that we have on there right now.
Now, think of it this way. The Obama administration, up until yesterday, was sort of cruising down the expressway to a military strike. This latest development, this offer of a proposal from Russia and Syria, you can think of it sort of as maybe pulling off on the side of the road. But when President Obama makes his case tonight to the American people, he'll still make his case for military action, we're told by a senior administration official, and he will at least be saying that it's this threat of military action that has yielded this potential avenue. Kate?
All right, Brianna, thanks so much. Let's talk more about this. And for that, let's turn to Christiane Amanpour, CNN's chief international correspondent, and of course, the host of CNN International's Amanpour. Christiane, a lot to talk about this morning. I mean, we keep talking what a difference a day makes in these negotiations. You hear just now from Brianna the development that Syria has kind of officially said they're on board with this proposal to put their chemical weapons under international control. Of course, there's some caution there, but what do you make of the development?
Well, I think if this does work out, as is being floated around now in the international community, it would be precedent-setting, and it would have far-reaching implications for all sorts of weapons of mass destruction that are owned by other countries. This is an amazing moment. Obviously, people are taking it with the due skepticism that it deserves, but there are ways of determining whether this is a serious proposal, that Syria immediately accepts international observers to come in and look at their sites and secure them, that the process immediately begins for securing them and putting them under international control. Already the French are bringing a resolution to the UN precisely for that today. And this is a rare moment in 2.5 years of this civil war that everyone is on board: Russia, China, the other 3 members of the Security Council, US, Britain, France, and all other members are on board, including Syria. Again, we have to see whether it's going to work. But look, Kate, the United States does not want to take a military strike. It's been sort of forced into going down that road, but there have been many detours. President Obama taking it to Congress is one detour. This is another one. If this does bear fruit, it's a major international achievement, a major precedent setting, and I think the president would be right that it is only diplomacy backed by the credible use and the credible threat of force that yields these kinds of breakthroughs.
And John McCain, even on the show just earlier, who you would think, I mean, he has been one of the staunchest supporters of arming the rebels and for military action in Syria. He even said, while he's skeptical, that you cannot pass up this opportunity if it's real. And he even went as far to say, and I thought it was interesting, that it shouldn't be difficult. You could do it very quickly in figuring out if this is a serious proposal or not.
Just as I was saying, but I think also there's an apples and oranges situation here. John McCain is rightly very, very concerned about the entire civil war. There are 100,000 people have been killed.
Right.
Whatever happens with these chemical weapons, whatever happens with securing them or not, even if there's a US strike to punish Assad, it will not affect, I don't believe, materially the dynamic of the war. So that's a whole nother issue. But in this matter of international law and prohibitions and norms and conventions against weapons of mass destruction, of which chemical weapons are some, this is an important red line. We talk about red lines all the time. The president said it's not just mine, it's the world's. And it's true. You can't use weapons of mass destruction with impunity. It puts all of us at risk. And I think that's going to be the challenge for President Obama in his speech tonight.
And also, while politically convenient, and I mean that in the good way, I mean, people want to avoid military action if at all possible, when at all possible, isn't it also practically and logistically very difficult to pull this off quickly in terms of securing the chemical weapons, getting the experts in here to identify that all of them have been handed over? It's fraught with risk.
I think it's fraught with risk. It's obviously a long process. But if Syria is genuinely on board, they control it. They control the sites, they control the area, they control the stockpiles. If they want to do this and avoid a strike, which I think they do, even in Charlie Rose's interview, President Assad said, I would do anything to stop another, as he put it, crazy war in the Middle East. To a direct question, would you give up these chemical weapons and put them under control? So they can. There are ways of knowing very, very quickly whether this is a goer or not, or whether it's merely stalling tactics and whether it's just typical another way of trying to stall for time.
And understandably, I mean, Nick Robertson was reporting that he spoke with a rebel spokesman in Syria who said that they don't believe it. They think he's just playing for time. But there's understandable skepticism, but there's a way to confirm it.
Right, and the rebels would say that because they've seen this before. They've had chemical weapons used against them, not just once, but dozen times at least. And they also want some kind of game-changing intervention to change the playing field, to change the battlefield. That doesn't look like it's going to happen at this point.
All right, well, we'll see. Today, we keep saying it every day, and it seems to be true every day, a crucial day in this conflict, and we'll see what happens, especially tonight when the president speaks. Christiane, it's great to see you.
Thanks, Kate.
Thanks so much. A programming note, of course, to remind you, President Obama will address the nation this evening, 9 p.m. Eastern. You heard in the conversation with Christiane just what is at stake and how important hearing from the president is today and right now.